Welcome back to The Explainer. I am so glad you're here today because we're looking at a topic that is literally hitting every single one of us right in the wallet. Okay, let's just dive right into this. Today, we are breaking down the American affordability crisis. We're going to unpack exactly what's happening to the economy, why your grocery bill looks the way it does, and how this is fundamentally reshaping the lives of millions, particularly younger generations.
It's the giant question hanging over all of us right now in 2026. Is the American dream becoming impossible to afford? For generations, this dream was built on a really simple, almost guaranteed promise. You work hard, you buy a house, you raise a family, and you kind of just coast into a secure financial future. But today, millions of Americans are really starting to wonder if that dream has a price tag that's just, well, completely out of reach. We're seeing this massive disconnect between working a grueling full-time job and actually feeling financially secure.
All right, let's get into Section 1, the cost of living squeeze.
The quote here really nails it. A paycheck that once provided stability now disappears quickly. And wow, doesn't that perfectly capture the modern squeeze? We aren't just talking about entry-level workers here. Even middle-class folks, families with two incomes, they're feeling this immense pressure. Salaries just aren't keeping pace with inflation. It's like the money comes in and poof, it instantly vanishes.
And this is exactly where that paycheck goes. It's a total explosion of costs at every single turn. We're talking inflated grocery bills, skyrocketing rent, the gas you need just to get to work, insurance premiums, keeping the lights on, healthcare. These aren't luxuries. These are literally the bare minimum requirements to function in society right now, and the cost for every single one of them has just spiked.
So how in the world are people actually managing this? Well, they're being forced into immediate, really severe sacrifices. People are driving their old cars straight into the ground. A staggering number of folks are taking on multiple side hustles just to break even on their basic bills. Actually, we're even seeing record numbers of adult children moving right back into their childhood bedrooms just to escape that skyrocketing rent. It's basically a survival mode economy, which leaves absolutely zero room for savings.
Which naturally leads us to the critical question everyone is asking around the dinner table. Why? Why are costs rising so incredibly fast? What's actually driving this relentless squeeze? Well, the answer isn't just one simple thing. It's really a perfect storm. It's a complex web of compounding factors. You've got inflation devaluing the dollar, while lingering supply chain disruptions make it harder to actually get goods. Then, rising energy prices mean it costs more to transport literally everything. Combine all of that with labor shortages, global instability, and really high consumer demand, and boom, perfect storm. It's like a giant row of dominoes. When one falls, like fuel prices, it knocks over everything else, right down to the price of your morning coffee.
Moving on to Section 2, the housing and debt wall.
I want you to think back to the traditional progression that previous American generations enjoyed. It was almost a guaranteed formula, right? You graduate, you secure a stable career, you buy a starter home for a totally reasonable price, start a family, and then achieve financial security. It was neat, it was linear, and for decades, it was a highly achievable blueprint for the middle class.
But today's reality just violently shatters that timeline. Millions of millennials took on massive student debt to secure those careers, only to hit a massive brick wall. Because of high interest rates and a totally brutal housing market, household formation is literally plummeting. Young adults are being forced to delay marriage, push back or completely abandon the idea of homeownership, and put off having children. The math simply does not allow for that traditional progression anymore.
And that brings us to a really powerful realization. The idea that hard work automatically guarantees success, that's fundamentally broken for a lot of people right now. There's this deep, completely valid frustration among young workers who feel like they're doing absolutely everything right. They're working 40-plus hours a week, they're side hustling, yet they own significantly less than previous generations did at their exact same age. The effort is absolutely there, but the reward structure has seemingly vanished.
This brings us to Section 3. Redefining the American dream.
Because that traditional path is completely blocked, the actual markers of success are fundamentally changing. Instead of defining success by climbing a 30-year corporate ladder to get a suburban mortgage, millennials and Gen Z are prioritizing flexibility. We're seeing career choices shift entirely toward securing remote work just to escape super expensive cities. They're prioritizing mental health over a luxury lifestyle that's just funded by endless debt. They're basically rewriting the rules because the old game is just too expensive to play.
But adapting to this new reality is incredibly taxing, and a lot of that is thanks to social media comparison culture. While everyday workers are struggling just to pay rent, they're simultaneously doom-scrolling through these highly curated, wildly unrealistic luxury lifestyles online.
This constant exposure creates a really severe psychological squeeze. It makes people feel like financial failures, even when they are simply navigating a massive macroeconomic crisis.
Let's look at Section 4, Rebuilding the Middle Class. As we look ahead, economists are warning us about future pressures on the middle class, because this affordability crisis, it might not just be a passing phase. We're looking at chronic, long-term housing shortages that are going to keep prices high. We're staring down the barrel of automation and AI disruption, which could rapidly displace workers and impact wages. And overarching all of this is growing economic inequality. These are major structural changes that threaten to squeeze everyday Americans even tighter in the coming decades.
To combat this, there are several potential long-term solutions being fiercely debated across the entire political spectrum. Governments are looking at various levers here. Things like massive affordable housing programs to increase the supply, student debt relief to free up capital for young adults, initiatives to drive wages up so they actually match inflation, and comprehensive healthcare reform to lower those daily burdens. Now, whether you lean left or right on how to actually implement these, the fact remains impartially clear. These are the main tools currently being debated to try and bring the cost of living back down to earth.
So, the crucial takeaway here is this. This isn't just about people complaining about the price of eggs. The strength of the middle class is a core foundation of American stability. When a massive portion of the population is simply too financially stressed out to participate in the economy, to buy homes, start businesses, have kids, the entire system becomes incredibly fragile. That is exactly why this affordability crisis is one of the most highly emotional and heavily debated political issues of our time. It leaves us with a really profound thought. When ordinary people question whether they can even build a stable future, it changes how society sees itself. The American identity has always been rooted in optimism, in upward mobility. If that promise is broken by rising costs, we aren't just looking at a shift in the economy. We are looking at a fundamental change in the psychological identity of an entire nation.
And that leaves us with one final, provocative question. Looking at all this data, the skyrocketing costs and these shifting life milestones we just explored, do you think the American dream is still achievable in 2026? Or has it fundamentally morphed into something else entirely? I really want to know your take on this, so drop your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this crucial topic on The Explainer today. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I will see you on the next one.